Pox on the computer. Pox on PowerPoint. Away with all PowerPoint. No, for now. It was a very good one, but I have. So thanks a lot. This is really a pleasure. What I was thinking during that excellent presentation was that, first of all, I love the phrase, once you see it, you can't not see it. And I'm going to try to return to that in terms of describing some of the work I'm trying to do. And I also was thinking about the fact that, to get really neuroscientific about it, minds find narrative yummy. They like yummy narrative. They like stories. They like to put things into sequences and have characters in them. So I'm going to give you a little bit of one of those. And the character, fortunately enough, or unfortunately as the case may be, closely resembles the person standing on the stage. And the narrative goes something like this. I thought it might be necessary, maybe, because I apparently can't be put into a category effectively, or whatever it is I wrote in that book can't be compressed into a 5-minute statement, and I agree with that. That I would tell you a little bit about what it is that I'm doing here. Why am I here? And in order to tell you the answer to that question, I need to tell you that through an event very much like this, that is a kind of act of kind of interconnection, I happened to meet somebody in Northern California when I was there on teaching at UC Berkeley as a visiting professor about now 10 years ago. And through a series of remarkable coincidences, such as the one that brought me here, I met an audio producer who was interested in a lot of the same things that I was. I'm interested in the feedback loops between science and culture. I'm just as interested in how the brain does what it does as what happens to us when we know that the brain does what it does. And we were getting together to have a lunch, and one thing led to another, and it turned out we knew somebody in common. And I said to that person, I said, do you think that they would be interested in a story on ayahuasca tourism? And my collaborator then answered by saying, what's an ayahuasca tourism? So that provides me with a cue to tell you what an ayahuasca tourism. And I said, oh, well, it's when foolish people from Europe and Australia and North America, they go down to the upper Amazon in order to have an authentic psychedelic experience with a shaman. And when they could do a perfectly good job in their own backyard. And he said, oh, that's great. I like that. This particular person had gone to prep school in the 1960s and experienced many different psychedelics, and they apparently had no effect on him. And he was very interested in capturing some audio tracks of kind of drug geeks on spring break down in Peru throwing up after they drank ayahuasca. And I had some misgivings, actually, about his attitudes towards the whole thing, because actually the reason why I was going down is I had written a screenplay based on the letters between William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg about the plant that forms the basis of the psychedelic brew, ayahuasca. And in that book is called Yahe Letters. I highly recommend it. I was attracted to it because it's very difficult to make a movie of the works of William Burroughs, which are themselves very difficult to categorize. But the letters between Ginsberg and Burroughs were really beautiful and path-breaking and inventive, and I felt like I couldn't really finish that screenplay without actually going down to the upper Amazon and experiencing some contact with this plant that they were writing about, which they called Yahe, but which in the area that I was lucky enough to visit is called ayahuasca. Now, I felt a little bit put off by maybe some of the ironic perspective of my lovely collaborator, because I had a sense that there was something very deep in psychedelic experience that we were repressing, that this was an aspect of human reality which, because things got rather ungovernable and difficult to deal with in, say, 1968, we decided to just do what we often do, when things aren't really going very well. Like, let's just pretend that didn't happen, right? let's just pretend that we're not all here because of the various experimentations of that generation. Let's just pretend that the internet doesn't come out of the fabulous psychedelic dreams of a whole generation of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. Let's keep pretending that until we can't pretend it anymore. And so I was interested in the linkage between psychedelics and the culture of Silicon Valley. And of course, while I was writing my book at an incredibly slow rate, other people came out with books that confirmed my hunch. Thank you very much. I love being a scholar. And so I went down thinking, and this is really, I'm going to get to the point of why I'm here. I really thought, though, despite my misgivings and my desire to sort of have a scholarly perspective on what was going on, I wanted to understand the culture of the people that were using ayahuasca, even if that culture were people coming from North America and Europe and Australia. And I understood from reading the literature that people were having, a wide variety of experiences, and I wanted to understand what were some of the contributing factors to those different experiences. But I still thought that basically what I was doing was going down to the rainforest to first and foremost take a drug. Or as the contract which I signed with the outfit that funded our trip down to South America, I agreed in contractual terms that I would, and I quote, trip balls, unquote. I honestly had never heard the phrase before, but instantly understood what it meant when it was used. So I thought that, I was going down to take a drug and, then I was going to report on it, So I was like, wow, I am the cleverest person in the world, okay? I'd long suspected it, and it's like, I'm getting paid to go down and do this, right? So, but the joke was on me, to be honest with you, because I went down to Peru, a highly scattered, incredibly frenetic, ego-driven, highly dissatisfied, and deeply sick individual. That's how do you think I got there? Because I had lifelong asthma, for example, that put me in and out of the hospital. The only time I ever lived in Philadelphia was in a hospital. And nothing that the wonders of modern technoscientific medicine were offering me was really working. And so I was regularly sort of on the brink of, distress, let us say, but near-death situations as well. And so when I went down to Peru, I had, no idea that any of this was going to be implicated in this highly contingent lark of an event that I was engaging in to go down and just take a drug and then come back and get paid for it. And I went down and I met the incredible woman who was leading the ceremony, Norma Pandoro, and I was meditating because I was scared out of my wits because of the context, and I was meditating to try to just detach myself from the situation and observe the situation. And after drinking the highly noxious, but in some ways delectable beverage, and pouring it back like a fat tequila shot, which it was, the effect of this quote-unquote drug began to come on, and what ensued was the most difficult experience of my life in which someone else did not die. I experienced what I later learned psychological literature characterized in the 1960s as ego death. And as the night drew to a close, which featured my experience with relatives that have been long dead, experience with enormous amounts of information that no theory of consciousness can quite today deal with, I was, with great relief, told by the internal Socratic voice that the ayahuasca often presents itself as, that I didn't need to do this again, absolutely. And so, whew, yeah, all right, good. And I went down to, I went to sleep for a few hours. Then there was a knock on my door, and it said I had to go down to the river to record some tracks of making ayahuasca. And Norma said to me, she said, in Spanish, she said, "Tonight you will again drink ayahuasca." No. Right? And she said, "Oh no, you must be brave, And I said, "I'm not brave. I haven't slept in 3 days. It took me forever to get down here. I just need to sleep." And she said, "Okay, all right. I'll prepare some capsules for you in my lab back at the University of Peru to help you to deal with the rest of your asthma. Huh? I had not discussed any of this with her, right? And of course, I was probably wheezing up a storm as I sat there meditating. But I had to go off all meds that I was on at the time in order to drink the ayahuasca. And she said, so this idea that, first of all, I wasn't going to have to drink ayahuasca again. And second of all, that this woman was caring for me, this led to a kind of total release of tears. And so I slept, and 2 days later I decided, and I went to her and I said, look, in her Telefunken German soccer jersey, I said, look, I'll drink ayahuasca again tonight. I want to deal with my asthma. And she gave me a high five, and I continued to fast and eat nothing but rice and fish. And the ceremony ensued later that night, and I drank the ayahuasca. And almost immediately, a wand-wielding bird deity did something to the neurochemical structure in my brain and presented itself before me with a wand, and it started passing its wand over my body and instructing me how to breathe. Now, please know that I'm making absolutely no claims for the ontological reality of this wand-wielding bird deity, but dang, was it convincing. And it reminded me of a cheap clinic where I'd gotten my teeth worked on near MIT, and he was very grumpy, to be honest with you. But he led me through a series of breaths so that I could breathe, and honestly, by the last breath, I felt what Freud, the aforementioned Freud, had described as the oceanic consciousness, the capacity for the ego, the boundary between the ego, the self, and the other, to completely wither away. And I experienced the entire universe breathing with me in that breath. And then, as if on cue, it gave the kind of like 1960s Batman transition, where it went, And I went to the next phase of the experience because I said, please heal me of my asthma. Please teach me how to integrate my life back in North America, into my life in North America, and please show me some joy. So again, the wand-wielding bird deity presented himself and he said, so, you want to know about North America? I'll tell you about North America. You can mourn all of my dead. How about that? How about you mourn that? No, I can't do that. I've been through that the night before. I can't face that. He's like, no, you will. But after the first night, I'd learned that there was a kind of like ontological negotiation that took place in these realms. And one thing led to another, and he finally said, look, can you write and speak about the fact that you were healed of your lifelong asthma using an ancient Indian technology? I said, sure, yeah. He's like, now for some joy, right? So message delivered. True enough that since that time, there's been I went back, I didn't go to the doctor for 5 years. And it wasn't immediate, but immediately I was able to throw my inhaler in the Yanayaku River. And whatever the vector that caused it, the healing is actual and complete. And so too was the lifelong eczema that I suffered from that would often turn me into something approaching a reptile that looked like that recent movie that Johnny Depp did the voice for, that I can't quite remember. But I would take on the appearance of a reptile periodically. That's also gone. And so what I've spent the last then 10 years trying to do is figure out how the hell that could have been possible. How is it possible that on this lark that I went downward, I was going to take a drug, that somehow this very complicated experience yielded a whole body healing that none of modern technoscience was able to yield for me? And I don't want to claim to have a question, but that was why I wrote Darwin's Pharmacy, to kind of come up with a theory of consciousness that would understand the relationship of the body and the mind in a way that makes sense of the feedback loop between these sorts of experiences and the kind of experience I had. So the name of this talk was Hologram from Ayahuasca. I am that hologram. Message transmitted. Thank you very much.